Hello everyone, this is Prestononic speaking. I would like to make a video reviewing a game that was produced 8 years ago called Airplane Fly Hawaii. This is a game developed by Tri1 Games. However, there's another gaming developer that develops the exact same kind of games as what Tri1 Games developed called Quantum Game Design. And I played a lot of those games already, such as Airplane, Airplane 2, Airplane Fly Bush Pilot, many of those, Airplane Fly Megatropolis. But overall, I feel like out of all of those games developed by those two developers, I feel like this one is still by far one of the most successful. So in this video, I would like to show you one of the fastest ways to unlock every single aircraft without any hacks or glitches. Now a quick disclaimer, this is based on my experience and this is what I think is the fastest. There could be another faster way to do it, but this is how I do it. Without further ado, let's get started. So before you get started on your first flight, go to the options menu first, and the latest update has made the boost completely free. I remember the very first time they actually had the boost locked to where it costs like 40,000 game points to actually unlock it, but now on the latest update they have made it absolutely free. So go straight to boosting it from off to ×4. So this game has 42 aircraft in total, and you actually get to start with 5 of them. On the first page, you get to start with the first 2 on the first row, and the second page, you actually get to start with the 3 on the first column. Now, the main reason why all of these look free already is because I already unlocked them at 500,000 points, which is what the final plane costs. Now, throughout the campaign, the best routes involve going from the big island of Hawaii to Niihau Island, from Maui to Niihau Island, and from Hawaii to Kauai, and of course vice versa. Now starting off with the planes that are already given to us from free, the 2 best planes that I recommend that give the highest rate of money of the starter planes is either the Cessna Citation Jet or the de Havilland Canada DHC-3. Let's start off with the Cessna Citation. The Cessna Citation is actually the only jet that you get to have from the start of the game. And when I flew it, it was quite decently fast. The highest amount of money I have ever gotten from the longest route is 2.08 thousand, which is not too bad. On average, is about 1.5 thousand. But the main advantage of the Cessna Citation Jet, unlike the other planes given as a starter, is that it is probably the fastest out of the 5 that are given. So that is one way to get a high rate of money in terms of the starter planes, is to have a decently amount of money per each mission while having the highest rate of missions completed. Next up is the de Havilland Canada DHC-3, and that was probably the plane that I used the most often before I moved on to the next plane that I used to grind for the money, because it actually, out of the 5, it actually does produce the highest amount of money per flight. From my experience, the maximum amount of money I ever gotten from this plane was 2.5 thousand per flight with an average of 2,000. This may be a bit more slow than other planes, especially the Cessna Citation. However, with the help of the ×4 boost, it shouldn't make as much of a time difference. So that still gives a whole benefit of getting a high rate of money per flight. Now, what's good about this seaplane, unlike other seaplanes in the game, is that this is one of those seaplanes that can land on both water and land. Before I move on to the next plane that I use for long time farming of money, I would like to give a shout out to 2 alternatives that you could probably use that might interest you, and that includes the Boeing B-17 and the Bombardier CRJ-700. The B-17 Flying Fortress is the very first plane that you get to unlock after earning some money at a starting price of 4,000 game points, and just like the Citation, this plane actually does give a maximum of around 2,000 per flight with an average of 1.5 thousand average, so that is roughly just as much as the Cessna Citation. Now, the only reason why I didn't include that in my own grinding campaign is because, unlike the Cessna Citation and the de Havilland Canada DHC-3, this World War II plane, especially this World War II bomber, It was pretty fast in its time for a heavy aircraft, but at this modern day, it is rather slow. I don't blame any history of it. It's best to keep the plane the way it is. It just looks pretty cool to fly, and then you can still farm some pretty good amount of money from it. Moving on to the Bombardier CRJ700. The CRJ700 is the second aircraft that you can unlock in the game at the price of, I believe, $8,000. Now, as a turbofan engine jet, it should be flying roughly the same speed as the Cessna Citation, but in real life, of course, they have different performances. But the main disadvantage the CRJ700 has, unlike the Cessna Citation, is that it farms less money than the Citation can. The maximum I've got so far was only 1.5 thousand, with an average of 1.2 thousand per flight. So that is a bit of a disappointment, but at least it's still pretty cool to fly, especially as the first commercial jet that actually flies public service instead of just being a private executive jet, which is pretty interesting to have for those who are really into flying commercial flights. Moving on to the very first aircraft that I use for a long-term farming money period, and that would be none other than the F-16. This is the very first fighter jet to unlock at a price of only $15,000, which is quite a bargain because this plane can actually fly really fast and farm a decent rate of money. For each flight, the maximum I have ever gotten was 2.6 thousand, which matches the exact distance from the big island of Hawaii to Niihau Island, and it even has a decent average of 1.9 thousand per flight. Now, I would like to tell you that this fighter jet actually outranks all the planes that are below 100,000 of a price in terms of being able to farm money. Reason is, from my experience, all the other planes below 100,000, they can't frequently reach as high amount of money earned per flight as this F-16 can. And especially that this plane can fly really fast. As a turbojet, a fighter jet, every time I turn on ×4 boost, an average time of flight I always get from either Hawaii to Niihau or the two alternative long routes, it only takes me about 1 to 3 minutes each flight, which makes it very time efficient to get a lot of money. After a long time of farming money with the F-16, I have finally hit the 100,000 mark, and then I continued grinding until I got the next plane that can farm better amounts of money than the F-16, and that would be starting with the Boeing 737. The Boeing 737 is one of the most successful commercial liners used in history and is still one of the most popular at this day. In this game, the Boeing 737 has a starting price of $120,000. It is a medium-sized aircraft, and in real life it is powered by two CFM56 engines which still deliver enough power for it to go fast, even though not as fast as a turbojet. This is the first aircraft I encountered that can give me a maximum higher than the distance from Hawaii to Niihau. And so far, from my experience, the maximum it has ever given per flight is 4.1 thousand, with an average of 3,000. This is a much better deal than the Bombardier CRJ700, and the time difference of the flight between the 737 and the F-16 shouldn't be too far off, as it is still a jet instead of a propeller plane. Now, long after unlocking the Boeing 737, that you will get a much better plane to continue this campaign. 10,000 credits later, you actually get to unlock the FA-18 Hornet, and that is at a price of 130,000. This is a slightly bit slower than the F-16, but it's much faster than the turbofan-powered jets, but it can deliver a much higher amount of money per flight than the F-16 can. Well, actually, than any cheaper plane in this game can. This fighter jet can actually deliver a maximum of 12,000 per flight, with an average of 8,000. So with those amounts, as well as the short time length of each flight, just like the F-16, this marks the starting point of intense farming of game money. So the F-18 Hornet is the main aircraft that I use to journey through 100,000 to 200,000. But before we move on to 200,000, I would like to showcase one alternative jet that you can use as well that delivers a decent amount of money, which is the Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning, which the price is at 150,000, and it has a decent delivery of a maximum of 9,000 per flight with an average of 6,000 per flight. The only thing I don't like about this game with the F-35 Lightning is that in real life, the F-35 Lightning can hover in one place. In the game, the nozzle is fixed to where it can only fly forward. It cannot hover in one spot like a helicopter. Boo! Now, after hitting past the 200,000 mark with the 737, the FA-18 Hornet, I have come across one plane that I would consider the most overpowered plane in the game in terms of the ratio between price and income. And I am about to show you the plane. At first glance, you might be thinking, oh my god, Prestonautic must be joking. This A320 member is only going to get the same amount of income as the 737. Well, not on the developer's watch. This Airbus A319 has a price of 220,000, which is 100,000 more than the 737. But the biggest difference between the A319 and the 737 in this game is the income that it delivers. From a single long-range flight from Hawaii to Niihau. Based on my experience, the maximum it gave is 34,000, with a high average of 27,000. And that is way more than the 737. And it is way more than literally most of the planes in this game. However, it does have some competition, and it is from more commercial liners that you are about to find out next. After passing 300k with the Airbus A319, I continued to farm money until I reached the next commercial liner that can deliver a similar income as the A319 can. And I did. Not just one, but two. Starting off, we have the Boeing 757. Yes, one of the longest narrow-body aircraft ever built. This 757 has a starting price of 360,000. And with the competition against the A319, it can deliver a maximum of 33,000. However, it has a more slim chance of getting a higher income, as the recorded average is only 19,000. But sometimes bigger size could be a lot more fun to fly. And there is actually a bigger aircraft that joins the competition with both the 757 and the Airbus A319. But first, we will be going over an alternative before we hit that one. Well, at first you may find this alternative quite ridiculous in real life, but in the cyber world, Tri1 Games has made it possible. And the aircraft that I'm going to announce as an alternative is the Boeing 747 float version. Now, unlike the regular 747, this 747 float can only land on water. It cannot land on land, unfortunately. It was actually unlocked at the exact same time as the 757 at the price of 360,000. Now, this is mainly just an alternative for two reasons. One, because it's going to be a little bit more complicated to land on water as the runway is a bit less visible. And two, the 747 can still deliver quite a large amount of income, but the maximum is only 16,000 with an average of 11,000, which is why I only made it an alternative instead of a primary part of the strategy. It just might be kind of hilarious to just see yourself fly an actual float version of a 747 than a regular 747, of course. A lot of viewers out there are fans of the Queen of the Skies or the Jumbo Jet and still find this pretty funny. But all jokes aside, it's time to put in another overpowered plane of the game. Not only is it my favorite of the game, it's also my favorite in the real life, especially the Dash 200 variant. And this plane is none other than the Boeing 777. That's right, the world's largest twin-engine plane ever built. The Boeing 777 has a starting price of $380,000. If I were to pick the closest competition with the Airbus A319, it would definitely be this plane. This plane is very similar in terms of the income earned. This plane can deliver a maximum of $33,000 with an average of $27,000, which is roughly about the same. Now it is just a matter of what size of plane do you like to fly more, the big one or the small one? To me, I personally like flying the Boeing 777 in this game. Not because it's my favorite in real life, but I just feel like the Boeing 777, in terms of lowering down the throttle, it kind of lowers the throttle a bit faster than the A319. But because it is heavier and like bigger, it gives me more of a challenge of landing the aircraft smoothly, which helps me practice more to gain a benefit of landing all the other planes nice and smoothly. And so, I have continued grinding and grinding in the Boeing 777 to farm money up to $500,000. It was quite an experience, really. Of course, I didn't play this non-stop. I sometimes even took a break in between. But if I were to estimate the time length that I played in total, it would probably have been around 3 to 6 hours in total. So it wasn't too long, but at the same time, not too short either. But as you can see, I'm approaching the final destination to park my plane at the gate at Honolulu, and then I will reveal to you what the most expensive plane is. Well, look at that. At $500,000, you unlock the official Boeing 747, the Queen of the Skies. But before they end this video, I would like to give out 3 of the most misleading choices in my opinion that would pretty much slow you down if you keep on using them when it comes to farming for money on trying to reach 500k to get the 747. Let's start with number 3. Now I would hate to bring up to you guys that my number 3 would probably have to be the Airbus A380, though it is not too effective in terms of harming your momentum of grinding for money. But still, for its size and price, it costs $400,000 to unlock the Airbus A380. That's $20,000 more than the Boeing 777. However, it delivers a much less income than the 3 commercial liners that are a bit too OP for this game. It only delivers a maximum of $15,000 with an average of $11,000, which I kind of find disappointing for its size. For that being the behemoth double-decker, full-on double-decker, it kind of just disappoints me. But hey, it's the second to last commercial liner to unlock. Anybody who are bigger A380 fans than 747 fans, you get the thumbs up from me that might as well just enjoy this plane instead of the 747 if it's worth it. No more efforts for farming money if that's the case. Coming up at number 2, I would have to give it to the Boeing C-17 Glowmaster 3. Quite disappointing for a large-sized cargo aircraft that is even bigger than the 757 and the Airbus A319 in this game. The price is only $80,000 and it can only deliver a maximum of $1,500 with an average of $1,300. In Airplane Fly Hawaii, no other plane can be more disappointing than the Douglas DC-10. The cool classic trijet, eh? Best for the competition against the 777, am I right? According to Tri1 Games, absolutely not. The DC-10 is actually one of the earliest aircrafts to unlock in the game. It only costs $30,000. And what's more disappointing about it is, despite its size compared to the 777, the maximum it can only deliver is 1,000, nothing higher. And the average is only 700. I'll bet many players who are into farming money would feel very impatient when flying this plane. I would certainly love to fly a DC-10, but for Tri1 Games' DC-10, I would just say let it be stranded on Nihao Island for all I care. One more thing. Each aircraft type has a different timing of lowering down the throttle before landing. For propeller planes, it's best to do it at 75 to 100, turbofan at 150 to 200, and turbojet from 375 to 425. Anyways, that is all for this tutorial of how I farm money as fast as I can to 500,000 with no hacks or glitches. By far, I think Airplane Fly Hawaii by Tri1 Games is one of the most successful, simplified mobile flight simulators I have ever played out there. If you haven't gotten the chance to play it, go check it out. I would say it's very fun, especially for those who are first experiencing this. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a nice day. Bye.